Will the US Federal Reserve use XRP? Well, I've got a great clip here that's going to talk about that. I also have some really good stuff from David Schwartz. We're going to talk about the Ripple case. Also, we're going to talk about BRICS and the currency they could probably use to get around their own currencies, which is XRP. We're going to talk about all of this in this video. I hope you stick with me through this whole thing. Let's get into this. First clip is from Jack the Ripper.
So the paths are leading to some form of a digital currency. So do you think it's coincidence that we're now at the exact same moment seeing executive orders and mandates come out, and in it there is talk of a coming Federal Reserve digital dollar?
No, it's par for the course as far as I am concerned. I mean, how far along they are, I'm not certain. I have looked into this fairly deeply. There is some talk of going on the back of, let's say, an XRP or some other currency that's out there now that's functioning well and has been basically tested, and then putting a CBDC on top of that. That certainly could be achieved. And if it were, it could expedite how quickly this comes to the fore.
Okay. The Federal Reserve is going to want to use a currency that has been tested by their central bank and other central banks, which XRP has. Also, they're going to want to use a currency that they're able to use in the US with the current laws and the way everything stands right now in the US. Only really Bitcoin, XRP, and maybe now Ethereum are coming into the fold where they're going to have ETFs, right? You're going to have an Ethereum ETF coming soon, probably a Solana ETF, but those aren't made for central bank digital currency. You need a bridge asset. That is XRP. So it's great to hear that little clip here. It seems like we've been talking about this for years, and we have been, but it does seem like we are getting to the final end here. Ripple has filed a notice of supplemental authority regarding the recent Binance decision with XRP. Defendant Ripple Labs respectfully submits this notice of supplemental authority relevant in its opposition to the SEC's pending motion for remedies for the entry of final judgment. So hopefully we will get there. I know a lot of people are throwing around August as the final days, but man, I will take it as long as we can get through this year and have a clean 2025. That's all I really care about at this point. This is a really interesting video. I thought I wanted to play. It's a minute long. What the BRICS nations are doing, they don't need to use the SWIFT system. And so there's a lot of really good pieces here, and we're going to talk about it.
What the BRICS nations are doing is saying, well, we don't need to use the SWIFT system because we don't want to be subjected again to U.S. sanctions, because if the U.S. is sanctioning you, you can't move money using that SWIFT system. So what's really interesting is, number one, they're creating a payment system that would go around SWIFT. But how do you do that when you have 5 major countries that all have their own currencies? And one of the ways they're doing that is by using possibly cryptocurrency to do that. That would translate their currencies into a single cryptocurrency that is then used through the system and then reformulated, I guess, when it gets into their country, back into their own personal
get out from under dollar.
Okay, really quickly, sanctions. That is a big sticking point here. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the US and partners put like 11,000 sanctions on Russia and different people inside of Russia where their money was locked up and seized. And so you have other BRICS nations that looked at that and said, I don't want that to be me. And so what they're trying to do, the BRICS countries are trying to do, is de-dollarize, use less dollars inside of their ecosystems as well as their money. But what happens is when you go out and let's say you bought the Chinese yuan or you bought the Brazilian real, there's a lot of fluctuation in those currencies, right? And so if you have $1 billion in the bank and it fluctuates down 5%, right? You just lost $50 million. It's a lot of money. So you really need to be careful where that money's going into. This is the whole reason we're going to do tokenization of assets and all that stuff. But BRICS countries are looking for an alternative to their own currencies that they could use to move money in and out, to divert and stop using the SWIFT system because they're worried about sanctions.
Hegemony, and that's going to happen.
And then there goes the power of the U.S. to impose these sanctions, right?
Correct, because first of all, they're all building alternate payment systems. Even the German foreign minister the other day said Europe needs an alternate payment system. They could do cryptocurrencies. I'm not saying buy Bitcoin. Again, this whole alternate system, it's being created now. This is not science fiction, but it could affect the dollar very rapidly.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. They've been saying the dollar is going to be affected for the last few decades. We're still here. I do think we are printing too much money these days. The last two presidents, Trump and even Biden, a lot of money being created. It's not helping the system. But a new BRICS payment or NIPS in the digital currency, right? So this is kind of what it's supposed to look like. You have the BRICS countries here on the outside. You have China, you have South Africa, you have India, Brazil, and Russia. And then you have this new currency in the middle between all of them, right? And you do see some of these countries connected to what's called mBridge, but really what you're trying to do is have a currency in the middle that can be exchanged for any other type of currency. And you can also put, your CBDCs on this, on this type of technology, right? And that is what we're hoping happens here. ISO. A lot of people remember the big conversations about ISO and, hey, it's coming and everything's going to blow up. Hey, I even told you guys that I don't think ISO is going to do much, but there are people like Paul Thomala. He is going to be talking here about ISO taking effect this year. Banks need to take this seriously this year and not wait until 2025.
What happens with ISO 20022?
All right, so looking at 2024 then and getting your forecast, what are sort of the main big steps to sort of summarize what we've covered?
I think the big steps guys, it's just going to happen. And whether you think it's 2025 or it's going to slip to 2026, it's not. It will be a 2024 issue. And actually, you need to bite it. You really need to get yourself ready. And if it was up to me, I would say automate it, because otherwise you're just going to be doing a lot of busy work, and that's not good for you. It's not good for your customers.
Also, guys, if you want to know what else I'm investing in outside of XRP, I did make a free tutorial, free list of tokens. There's 26 of them, and we cover some different areas like AI. We have some gaming tokens in there, some real world asset tokens. It's absolutely free. Just click the link down in the description where it talks about 26 tokens, and it's yours. We'd love to see if that can help you out. All right, David Schwartz here, CTO of Ripple. David Schwartz says, if the cost of payments goes down to zero, the world is going to change.
Happen no matter what. That is a given. We had a revolution in the physical delivery of goods with the shipping container, which changed globalization, started globalization. We had a revolution in the delivery of information with the internet. But what we don't know is, what is the TCP/IP of money? What is the shipping container of value? We don't know that yet. There's going to be one, though. That is a definite, and that's going to bring changes. And what I also want to get through is that one of those changes that I foresee and that I think is important is that the size of payments are going to shrink, drastically shrink. Many of you people here probably have a job and you probably get paid twice a month or every 2 weeks. Well, why is that? You probably pay bills once a month. Well, why is that? It's because payments are expensive and clunky. But if payments were cheap and simple, then those frequencies could go up. Money could be streamed at you while you're working. You could stream money to your landlord to pay for the place where you're staying. Now, I know those sound dumb, and I'll be blunt. Yeah, they are. And I'll tell you, if we were talking about email in the late 90s and you said to me, what are people going to use email for? I probably could not have given you the examples that is on everyone probably here, probably has a cell phone, probably has email on it, and probably has hundreds of messages that look nothing like postal mail or the messaging that existed in the late 90s. None of that could I have predicted. If you'd asked me if the internet had enough bandwidth in the year 2000, I would have said, yeah, it has plenty of bandwidth. Well, could I have imagined Netflix and on-demand video? That's ridiculous, right? The cost of bandwidth is too high for that. But the internet drove the cost of bandwidth down to zero. And if the cost of payments go down to zero, the world is going to change. And I'm going to explain some of the ways that...
And the one way to do that is to use something like XRP. I thought this was great too. This is why CBDCs fiat on steroids. See the case in Thailand using a CBDC as an excuse for economic stimulus, creating billions of fresh fiat money out of nothing as part of the country's fiscal policy to airdrop free CBDC. I told you this is how they're going to do this. They're going to get people using central bank digital currency because they're going to give you free money. And I know there's people out there saying, I'll never use it, I'll never use it, I'll never use it, until they say, here's $2,000. Just sign up and click here. I guarantee you that 90% of you that said you would never use it will click and get that $2,000. It's just how people are wired, right? And a lot of people struggle from get to point A to point B in life, right? Every month, maybe you're living paycheck to paycheck. That's why you're here in crypto. You're trying to find an outlet or a way to make more money. But this is what happens in life. And people will start using this new technology no matter what the bad things that they've heard about it, if it's free.
Let's take a look at Thailand. In 2023, Thailand launched a pilot where people received free money, basically were bribed with $280, which is about 10,000 baht, a lot of money for the average Thai, with an expiry date of 6 months on the money and a geofence of 4 kilometers radius where they can spend the money. Based on this recent success, and yes, they call it a success, Thailand will launch at the end of 2024 a digital token payout to 50 million lower income earners. 50 million people will participate, aimed at encouraging them to spend in their local communities. It's a 500 billion baht, which is 13.7 billion US dollar plan of creating money out of nothing. The sad and funny thing is that they wanted to take the 500 billion baht as debt, and they got criticized. So what did they do? They announced it will be taken from the fiscal policy instead, meaning fresh printing of money, meaning more inflation, meaning they steal from you anyway, right? And now everyone's happy, so they managed to pass that through the law. Using CBDC like this for stimulus achieved by airdropping or bribing, if we call it by its real name, will be used as an excuse to continue printing money. Just like Thailand shows us now. Continue printing.
Okay, regardless, these people are probably on some type of government assistance anyways, and they need help, right? Everybody in life comes from different situations where maybe they can't get a job, or where they live, they can't get a good job that helps pay to feed their kids or their family or whatever it is, right? These programs are designed to help people that actually need help, right? And to kind of shit on those people, I don't really agree with that. I do understand the thought process of, this is BTC prog, so they want to push Bitcoin, but I'm just trying to show you how they're going to get people into using CBDCs. This is probably the playbook that a lot of countries are going to use going forward, and I imagine that you're just going to see more and more of this. And they'll probably do something very similar here in the United States. They're already testing it, believe it or not. Okay, there's also the issuer of a stablecoin. Circle has obtained an electronic money institution license, a prerequisite for offering dollar and euro peg tokens in the European Union under the Markets and Infrastructure and MiCA play. So I told you this last year that Circle is one of the key players in Europe. Now their stablecoin is regulated, and they're going to have a euro stablecoin, which is actually really cool. I'd imagine that XRP Ripple will have some things very similar, since they have these similar connections. But you don't see Tether here. Why not? That is something like I hear more and more people talk about Tether this, Tether that. I personally stay away from Tether. I don't. Who's the CEO of Tether? Who works for Tether, right? Where's the events that Tether puts on? Tether is all kind of secretive, right? I know there's probably some video somewhere of a CEO talking, but Jeremy Allaire from Circle is always out, doing the rounds, talking with companies, partnering, doing things, and USDT Tether doesn't, right? And that's what really scares me about holding Tether. Anyways, I wanted to just put this in front of you. This is great news for USDC. I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Aloha.